My dear students, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace be upon you. Today we start our 13th lecture, the one that's supposed to be before the last. And as you remember, in lecture 12, in lecture 11, we started a summary of the whole novel of Pinocchio. And then we also did we had in lecture 11 chapters 1 to 2, and then we moved to lecture 12, and in lecture 12 we started chapter 3, 4, 5, then 8, and we ended up in lecture 12 with chapter 9. Okay, with chapter 9. Okay, and we did some, I gave some examples of the figures of speech and of the point of view, the kind of point of view, and what it is exactly. In today's lecture, okay, lecture 13, again, 13 will discuss, continue discussing Pinocchio. We have the text of chapters 34, 35, and 36. So again, this lecture, today's lecture, depends mainly on reading the text of these chapters. So you have to read them and make sure that you understand the flow of the plots of the plot of these chapters. The flow of the actions, and if there is any example of any figure of speech, you have to, of course, to underline it, and then know what kind of figure of speech it is. So there is, as I have just said, there is not much to discuss in today's lecture, except confirming that you please have to read the texts of these chapters, okay, and then the details of the story of these chapters, and how the novel ends, because it is very important when it comes to the end of the novel. It's very important because we come to the basic theme of this novel. Okay, right? It comes right at the end, when Pinocchio turns to be a real boy after a long trip, and after a lot of adventures of being a naughty boy and disobedient. Here, again, chapter 34, 35, tells us about Pinocchio being thrown in the sea, and then he was let's say taken out, or he was swallowed by a terrible shark, and then he was went down deep into the sea, inside the shark, and and then a fisherman was fishing, then he he rescues Pinocchio, and he has them fished by a hook and taken out of the sea, and then he starts talking to this old man, and then with some naughty speech from Pinocchio, we know about again the nature of this boy, and from this, as you see on page on this page here, we see, and how children are being taught, through the adventures of Pinocchio, how to be, real boys, how to be, obedient boys, how to be well-behaved boys, and how to choose their friends, and how to become, good with their, with other people, so that they become, real good boys, and boys of, let's say, of benefit or of use for their society. See on this page here, for example, we have let's say third, fourth, fifth, اللي هو 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, seventh line, as you see, that starts with no. Know then that once upon a time I was a wooden marionette, just as I am today. Once I was about to become a boy, a real boy, but on account of my laziness and my hatred of books. Okay, sorry, the line before starts with which held his foot. Pinocchio, feeling free as a bird of the air, began his tale. Okay, and this is here sort of a simile, a figure of speech. Feeling free as a bird of the air. Sorry, this is line fifth line, sixth line, sorry. Which held his foot, Pinocchio, feeling free as a bird of the air. Hona, we have here a figure of speech that is called simile, comparing, Pinocchio's feeling, as a free, he feels as a free. Okay, another, example of a figure of speech, اللي هو this next page, 2, 3, 4, fourth line starts, never mind, dear master, there are so many donkeys in this world. There are so many donkeys. Here, it's, you can consider that, this is sort of an irony, okay? Yani, when he says there are, many donkeys, he means that, it doesn't mean that, he doesn't talk about real donkeys. He talks about, other, people that could be just like donkeys, dummies, and do not understand what to do, and, just like, donkeys who do not know what to do and do not understand, a lot of things, and being stubborn sometimes. Okay, that's a kind of figure of speech that it could be considered as an irony. Okay, then next page here, at the end of this page, okay, at the end of this page, almost the line before the last from the bottom, high on the rock stood a little goat, bleating and calling and beckoning the marionette to come to her. Okay. Here we have, high on the rock stood a little goat, bleating and calling and beckoning to the marionette. Here we have the goat bleating and calling and beckoning. Okay, this is sort of what we call, a personification. Just, and when it comes to personification like this one, there are, so many examples when we have, inanimates, who are non-living things, are being treated as animates or as living things, making the non-living things as living things. Yani like animals, or other things that are let's say not living. They are being treated as living things, as people. Here, goat is bleating and calling, beckoning to the marionette. This is what we may consider as a personification. Next page, here, second, third line, we have Pinocchio's heart beat fast, and then faster and faster. Okay, as I said from the beginning of this of the discussion of Pinocchio, when we discussed or mentioned the point of view, the point of view of this novel is the third person point of view. Okay, but as we see also in many parts, you know, we have the narrator, اللي هو eye point of view, interferes sometimes in telling us or introducing us to some events. Okay, the narrator of the story sometimes interferes with the eye point of view by, you know, calling, you know, children, dear children, now we are going to do this is what's happening now, what's going to happen. But in general, the point of view is third person, using he, they, she. But sometimes he uses I. Here, this is an example of, you know, third person point of view, but what we call a omniscient point of view. Pinocchio's heart beat fast, and then faster and faster. Here, the point of view, the narrator, tells us about what is going on inside the heart of Pinocchio. So that means it's omniscient. يعني لما يكون الناريتر الراوي القصة اللي بيكون يعلم ما في داخل الشخصية، في داخلها، في شعورها، في قلبها، في تفكيرها، we call it what? Omniscient point of view. يعني بيكون هو الناريتر ايش؟ عالم، يعني عنده علم في خفايا الشخصية. Okay? فهو نتكلم عن heart beat fast. Pinocchio's heart beat fast and fast. So this is what we call omniscient point of view. Omniscient point of view. And then there are many examples of this point of view of being omniscient. Here, you know, it's a long story, you know, between Pinocchio and, you know, the fisherman, you know, being saved, you know, by this fisherman. Okay, then on this page here, Pinocchio at first starts with Pinocchio at first. Okay, third, fourth line, who's there to help you? Unhappy boy, said a rough voice like a guitar out of tune. هون عندنا اللي هو هذا this يعني statement says, said a rough voice like a guitar out of tune. Like a guitar out of tune. هذا هون عندنا هون ايش؟ We have here what? We have another figure of speech اللي ايش بسميه؟ another simile هون. We have a simile. A figure of speech. A figure of speech that is called simile. Why simile? Because we have a comparison between two unlike things. في عندنا rough voice, في عندنا اللي هو الجيتار. إذن rough voice is just like a guitar out of a tune. We call it simile. Why? Because we have a tool of comparison لإيش? Like. So when we have the tool of comparison, اللي هم الwords like, as, such as, similar to, as, okay? These are tools of comparison. If we have them in a statement comparing two unlike things, we call it what? Simile. If we use the same statement without using these tools, without like, as, such as, or similar to, okay? If we use the statement or the comparison without these tools, we call it metaphor. So here, this is an example of a simile. Then the events, you know, go on and on. We come to chapter, you know, 35, and here in chapter 5, here something to يعني mention and important that I have just, you know, talked about, اللي هو point of view. As I said before, point of view هنا قلنا إيش third person اللي هو he, she, they. And لكن إيش I said there is sometimes an interference of the narrator of using the I point of view. Okay, commenting on the actions and introducing some actions, like, you know, this chapter 35. It starts with in the shark's body, Pinocchio finds whom? Read this chapter, my children, and you will know. So this statement, or this line here, or these two, you know, sentences with a question and a sentence, of course. These two sentences introduce, you know, the whole chapter by, you know, from the narrator, you know, telling this children to read. Okay, in the shark's body, Pinocchio finds whom? Okay, now still talk about, you know, Pinocchio in the in the body of the shark. But here says, the narrator says, read this chapter, my children, هنا using the I, my narrator, and you will know. هنا إيش أنه this is a kind of يعني what we call point of view using the I. Then هنا أنه we said the point of view of this novel is basically, generally, is what? Third person, because through the whole course of the novel, the narration is what? Using he, she, they. Like sometimes as the beginning of the novel, and sometimes at the beginning of some chapters, and sometimes in the middle of other chapters, the narrator, the writer, interferes by addressing his speech to the readers, to the children, as this one here. Okay? Read this chapter, my children, and you will know. Then he starts with what? With he. Pinocchio, as soon as he had, he, they, it, as he walked, okay? Then, he comes back to the اللي هو البasic kind of narration, اللي هو a third person. Okay? Then next page, at the beginning of this page, it starts with, are my eyes really telling me my truth? Okay? Okay. Now I shall never leave you again. Are my eyes really telling me the truth? He's asking here. Are my eyes really telling me the truth? Are you really my own dear Pinocchio? Okay? Finding his father. Okay. Hona, are my eyes really telling me the truth? Hona, another figure of speech that we call also personification. Just, as if the eyes are like a person telling the truth when he sees, when he sees Pinocchio in the body of the shark. So here, Pinocchio, just by accident, meets with his father, Geppetto, in the body of the shark. On we go. Okay, now the father and the boy meet again. Then, we come to the end of this chapter, and then again here, chapter 36, again as the beginning of 35. See how it starts. This chapter again. This is the last chapter, of course, okay? Chapter 36 is the last. Here it says what? Pinocchio finally ceases to be a marionette and becomes a boy. Here is a general statement about, the whole chapter. This is from the writer, okay? Okay, as as I said, a secondary narrator. He is telling us, the narrator here, or the writer is telling us, about, sort of a summary of the whole chapter. Says that Pinocchio, finally, in his, at the end of this novel, he becomes a real boy. He stops to be a marionette, a puppet, a wooden boy, and he becomes a real boy after a long trip, and after many adventures, and after learning a lot of lessons from the life. He has become more experienced, and he has become a good person. He has become an obedient boy. He loves his father, and he listens to his father, and he values he knows what friends to be with, and how to deal with other people. So as a reward for being a good boy, he becomes at the end of the novel a real boy. So, and that all يعني sort of, as I said before, these are all يعني lessons and different experiences through Pinocchio for children to learn. Okay, يعني you might be a real يعني a boy, but you are not a real boy if you are not a good boy. if you do not, listen to your parents, if you do not obey them, if you are not a good person to other people, if you are not, a good, boy who knows how to choose, how to select his children. So you have to know how to select your children, how to be a good person with other people. So the end of the novel here, it goes on and on. We have an example, on this page that starts with as soon as they reached the shore, Pinocchio was the first to jump to the ground to help his old father. Then he turned to the fish and said to him, "Dear friend, you have saved my father, and I have not enough words with which to thank you. Allow me to embrace you, and as a sign of my eternal gratitude." So here, dear friend, okay, and then the whole statement here, the whole speech, sign of my eternal, till up to eternal gratitude. This is a speech addressed to a fish, okay, that saved his life and his father's life. So here, sort of a personification, because he talks to a fish as a person, as a real person. So that means it's a kind of personification. And then, as I said before, there are many examples of personification of animals, speaking like people, or being dealt with as real people, like the fox and the cat, and the fish. Okay, in many places, and the talking cricket, on this page it starts with "abandon us." We have the talking cricket. Okay, this also talking cricket. Okay, 1, 2, 3. The fourth from the bottom. Okay, talking, and then being addressed to, "Oh my dear cricket." Okay, this is a kind of personification, having animals speak or being dealt with as human beings. And then also we have another example of personification, having a snail, speaking, as on this page. We have here a snail, like before, a fish, a cat, and a talking cricket. Here we have also a snail that speaks. That's also an example of personification. I forgive you for all your old mischief on boys who love and take good care of their parents when they, and this is the fairy telling Pinocchio, when they are old and sick, deserve praise, even though they may not be held up as models of obedience and good behavior. Keep on doing so well, and you will be happy. So this is a kind of advice for children to be good, boys, and they'll be rewarded. If they are really good, they'll be rewarded for being good and well behaved. Okay, the marionette, gave, some money. Sorry, the fairy tale. Sorry, the fairy, gave some money to Pinocchio, the marionette, as a sort of a reward for being good and not being any more mischievous and not being naughty. And when he, found some money in his purse, and there were about 50 gold coins, he ran to the mirror. He hardly recognized himself. He looked at himself in the mirror. The bright face of a tall boy looked at him with wide awake blue eyes, dark brown hair, and happy smiling lips. He stood there, Geppetto, grown years and years younger overnight. You know, even his father Geppetto, looked younger. And then he went to his father, father, what has happened? Tell me if you can, cried Pinocchio, as he ran and jumped on his father's neck. He was so happy when he looked into the mirror and saw himself. Okay, just this when see what happened to you. This sudden change in our house is all you're doing, my dear Pinocchio. What has happened to us in this house? I have, Geppetto, the father, says that I have become younger and you have become a real boy. That is all because of what? Because of what you, about what you did for your good doing. That's all for your doing. Okay, for the good things that you did, for all your doing, my dear Pinocchio. Just this, when bad boys become good and kind, they have the power of making their homes gay, happy, and new with happiness. I wonder where the old Pinocchio of wood has hidden himself. So where is Pinocchio, the wooden boy? He doesn't exist anymore. He has become a real boy after a lot of good doings, and after being a boy who of good behaviors. Okay, there he is. Okay, so where is the marionette, the wooden boy? He's asking Pinocchio. The father says, there he is, and pointing to a large marionette leaning against a chair, head turned to one side, arms hanging, limb and legs twisted under him. After a long look, Pinocchio said to himself with great content, this comes to the end, he says, what? How ridiculous I was as a marionette. So here Pinocchio recognizes himself, and he remembers, and he wonders how silly he was when he was not a real boy, when he was a marionette, when he was a puppet, when he was a wooden boy. Okay, how ridiculous I was as a marionette, and how happy I am now that I have become a real boy. So this is how the novel ends, with by changing Pinocchio, the wooden boy, to a real boy after a long trip and too many adventures to maturity and to adulthood and to, let's say, maturity, let's say, and adulthood, and being a real person, a real boy, and a good boy. Okay, so that's all for today. Please again remember to read the text very well, and try to find more examples of figures of speech, and remember some quotations, some parts that really seem to be of importance, and to the general theme or general themes of the novel. Okay, and that's all for today. Please, if you have any questions, please don't forget to contact me through my email. Thank you very much, and wish you all the best, and see you soon in our 14th and last lecture. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.